I just want to do some disclaimers. I want to make it clear I'm not an attorney. My doctorate is in law and public policy. Although my doctoral studies have provided me with a comprehensive understanding of landmark Supreme Court cases and the intricacies of criminal law, my principal areas of expertise lie in distinct yet interconnected fields. These specialized domains encompass construction law, the complexities of zoning regulations and their general application, practical application, the multifaceted aspects of urban development, the formulation and analysis of public policy, the planning and implementation of transportation infrastructure, and the critical challenge and solutions surrounding affordable housing initiatives and legislation. Please be aware that during my live broadcast, any statements I make pertaining to financial investments or legal analysis should be understood strictly as an expression of my own personal opinion. These statements are not and should not be interpreted as formal legal counsel or professional investment advice. It is crucial to conduct your own thorough research and consult with local qualified professionals before making any financial or legal decisions. My insights are based on my individual perspective and understanding at the time of the broadcast and may not be suitable for everyone's specific circumstances alone. Now, this is the first time I've done it across all three things. It looks like it's kind of flaming on my other ones. So I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in to Patriots Corner Live. I'm trying to start doing this more on a common time and period, but really haven't got that set up. So, welcome to Patriots Corner with Dr. Hill Law, your source for unfiltered conservative analysis. We're here to dissect this week's biggest stories in politics, breaking news, government, and the economy, all from a grounded conservative perspective. Now, no spin, just straight talk about what matters to you. We will be diving into the issues shaping our nation, holding our leaders accountable, and discussing solutions that uphold our core American values. So now let's get started. Before I start segment one, I just wanted to mention the way I have this set up is I will go through a segment. I'll read that. If anybody wants to has questions or comments or something, once I get to the end of the segment, I'll take any questions, comments, or anything like that. Then I'll go take me a little, get a drink, take a little break, and then I will go to my next segment. So for the first segment, I was going to start with the federal court overreach and the issues with that. As we have seen in recent days, we have seen another torrent of political news and leftist attacks on President Trump, marked by numerous instances of judicial overreach. Now, these actions are actions of leftist judges who harbor animosity towards President Trump, who are overstepping their constitutional boundaries, attempting to legislate from the bench rather than interpret existing laws. They are encroaching upon the powers explicitly granted to the president and the executive branch under acts by Congress and violating these article powers vested in the Constitution. It looks like I lost my camera, so looks like I'm gonna have to end this. Saying it overheated. I'm gonna try to turn it back on. See if I get my camera back yet. I don't know if I'll get my camera back. We'll see. All right, there we go. I got my camera back. And so let's try this, which is to interpret the law and Constitution as written in the context in which it was written. Now, how they believe it should be today. The only body that has the authority in Congress, and the only one that has authority is Congress, and they would still have to call for an Article 5 convention of the states, where such states could submit amendments to the Constitution. Then 2/3 of these states, through citizens voting, would have to ratify those amendments. So judges don't have that authority to legislate from the bench. For example, a judge on Thursday for the U.S. International Trade Court issued a nationwide injunction blocking most of President Trump's tariffs, except for those on aluminum and steel. This injunction challenges the authority of President Trump to implement tariffs, a tool he has employed to pressure foreign nations in negotiating new trade agreements. Sorry about that a minute ago. I guess my camera was a little too hot from the previous show that I did on TikTok. Now, the administration's rationale behind these tariffs is to create trade deals that are more advantageous to American businesses, aiming to foster economic growth and to protect domestic industries. Now, however, the judge's ruling effectively halted that strategy for a short time, asserting that President Trump lacked the inherent power to impose such tariffs. Those who applauded the injunction argued that it served as a necessary check on presidential power, preventing potential economic harm and upholding the principles of constitutional governance. This legal battle underscores the ongoing tensions between the judicial and executive branches regarding the scope of their respective authorities, particularly in the areas with significant economic and international applications. Later the same day, a significant development occurred in the legal proceedings surrounding President Trump's administration's use of tariffs and other trade policies. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit Court issued a ruling granting the administration's request for an immediate administrative stay or reversing the nationwide injunctions. This decision puts a temporary halt to the judgments and permanent injunctions that the Court of International Trade had previously issued in these particular cases. The appellate court's actions provides a temporary reprieve for the Trump administration in its ongoing legal battles concerning international trade matters. The central argument presented before the U.S. Trade Court centered on the fundamental question of constitutional authority regarding international commerce. The contention is that the U.S. Constitution explicitly grants Congress the sole power to regulate trade with foreign nations, a power that, according to this argument, is not superseded by the President emergency's powers aimed at protecting the American economy. While this assertion underscores a crucial separation of powers principle embedded within the U.S. government framework, however, I predict a likely victory for the Trump administration in this legal challenge, primarily based on the provisions outlined in the Trade Act of 1974. Specifically, Section 301 of this act emerged as a key point of contention. This section empowers the United States Trade Representative, USTR, acting under the explicit direction of the President, to impose tariffs or implement non tariff trade barriers on countries identified as engaging in unfair trade practices that demonstrably harms U.S. commerce. This legislative provision grants the executive branch significant authority in addressing perceived imbalances and inequities in international trade. The argument further posed that establishing the culpability of nations like China and India and potentially numerous other countries participating in unfair trade practices should and not present an insurmountable hurdle. The existence of various trade disputes, accusations of intellectual property theft, currency manipulation, and market access barriers often levied against these countries provides substantial evidence to support these claims. Given the high stakes and the complex interplay between constitutional principles and statutory law, I do believe this case will ultimately reach the Supreme Court, the nation's highest judicial body, which is tasked with definitively interpreting the scope of Congress's authority over foreign commerce in relation to the president's power to act in defense of the national economy, particularly within the framework established in the Trade Act of 1974. Now, despite the potential for Supreme Court involvement, I believe the final Supreme Court opinion will align with Trump's administration's position, thereby affirming the president's authority through the USTR and the Trade Act of 1974 to impose tariffs on other non-tariff trade barriers in response to unfair international trade practices. This outcome would have significant implications for the future of U.S. trade policy. The Supreme Court recently also issued a significant ruling that curtails the authority of federal courts to impose nationwide injunctions on infrastructure projects facing environmental challenges. This decision represents a noteworthy development in the ongoing balances of power between the judicial and executive branches. Simultaneously, the nation awaits another landmark Supreme Court decision. This forthcoming ruling has the potential to reshape the political environment fundamentally and establish a historical precedent by limiting the ability of federal judges to issue nationwide injunctions against executive branch policies while these policies undergo judicial review. Now, while they're undergoing judicial review, such a ruling could significantly alter the process by which executive branch policies are implemented and challenged, potentially leading to more localized and less sweeping judicial interventions in the execution of federal initiatives, which pretty much, in layman's terms, means that while the federal court can still be used to challenge presidential executive orders or memorandums, they can only stop the implementations of such for the small group or individuals that sits in their court, not the whole population of the United States, until the final decision is reached in the appellate or Supreme Court. And that's what the left is trying to say, is if we stop, if they are not allowed to do this, then how can they stop? Because what they don't understand is if you read any executive order, read any executive memorandum, it will say on there, such and such executive branch conduct a study or whatever and come back to me 90 days or 120 days. All right. So they have to do that study to even start putting together the actual policy change for it. If it is a big enough of a policy change, that then has to go in front of both houses to be approved, Congress and the Senate. So there's still another check for that to be shut down before the court even needs to get involved. All right. But if the court gets involved at the very beginning, then that stops the president or the executive branch, the agency, from moving forward with those studies. So when President Trump's administration was challenging at the Supreme Court level for the federal judge's ability to issue nationwide injunctions, specifically on the 14th Amendment executive order of birthright citizenship, all the questions they were asking were like, well, what would happen if it was in fact when acted this and this and this? Well, the answer was we don't know because they hadn't made it that far because of the injunction. They weren't able to proceed that far to start doing the studies to figure out how they would deal with certain situations. So that's where that comes in at. All right, so that's the end of section 1 with a little bit added on. Oh, segment 1 with a little bit added on. Sorry about that little shortcut. It doesn't seem like it's going through my broadcasting through my live on my Instagram very well. It shows that I should be live, but it looks like it cut out because I just forward through and it looks like it kind of cut the video out. Nope, now it's moving. All right, it was frozen there for a second. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead since I don't see any comments in the chats. I see that I got one person in Rumble, one person that popped up in locals. I still don't show anybody in YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram yet. Well, actually, I did show a couple people on Instagram, but I don't see any comments from Instagram yet. So I will go ahead and get on to segment 2. Segment 2, I was going to cover the recent Biden administration scandal that's been talked about, which is what I wanted to cover was some assertions or have started being made by some leftists claiming that President Biden's policies have never faced constitutional challenges or nationwide injunctions, which reveal an apparent lapse in memory, or they've got selective memory because they have. The reality is that numerous executive orders and memorandum issued by the Biden administration were indeed subject to significant level legal scrutiny and resulted in federal judges issuing nationwide injunctions. So it's not like Trump's the first one. Determining a precise figure of such instances is difficult due to the fact that many were still pending in the courts at the time President Trump took office, and as a result, many of the affected executive orders or memorandum were overturned, leading to the cases being dropped because Trump was in office. As multiple conservative organizations mounted numerous legal challenges against various Biden administration policies, but nowhere near what the leftist groups are attempting. These challenges often centered on arguments of executive overreach, alleged violations of the Administrative Procedures Act, and contentions that the federal government was infringing upon the rights and powers reserved to the states. All right, so key areas where these legal battles unfolded were President Biden's executive actions and policy directives concerning voting rights, immigration enforcement and policy, environmental regulations aimed at addressing climate change, and mandates implemented in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Each of these areas has seen legal challenges questioning the former Biden administration's authority and the constitutionality of its actions. A particularly prominent example of a Biden era administration policy facing legal challenge and ultimately being defeated at the highest level is the case of Biden v. Nebraska. This significant case, the Supreme Court of the United States ultimately struck down President Biden's ambitious plan to forgive a substantial amount of federal student loan debt. Looks like I'm going to lose camera again for a minute. Looks like my camera's going to shut down again for a minute. Hopefully I can get it back up. It may be too hot. I may just have to cut this episode a little short. All right, let's get back going so it doesn't shut down again. of the outstanding federal student loan debt. Now, the court's decision in this case represented a major setback for the administration's policy agenda. Despite this clear ruling from the Supreme Court, the Biden administration subsequently continued to pursue their agenda. So, no, Trump's not the only person that's gone against the Supreme Court rulings. And now, obviously, they didn't. They did it through multiple different stuff. They tried to do the income save plan, all that. Um, But the funny thing is along with the growing concerns around President Biden's cognitive state during his presidency, critical questions have risen about the true nature of his administration. Even people who were key members in his administration or support the Democratic Party are starting to admit what Republicans and Fox News have been saying since 2020. Additionally, reports are emerging that suggest a lack of awareness on Biden's part regarding numerous significant executive actions from those throughout his time in office. These alleged instances have spurred demands for thorough investigations to ascertain the full extent of the situation, which Congress has started with. We'll see how much we can get through, how much they learn. Among these specific actions attributed to this period, as highlighted by Power of the Future, are the Arctic drilling ban, the ambitious goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2050, the establishment of clean energy AI centers, and the offshore drilling ban implemented shortly before the administration concluded its terms, and the many pardons issued to cabinet members days before President Trump's second inauguration. Biden doesn't remember signing those. Now, these documents were all signed with an auto pen, similar to a digital signature, which means anyone in his inner circle could have signed them, and this could be why he doesn't remember signing them, or on top of his cognitive decline, or he just never signed them and somebody else did it for him. Now, the implications of these revelations are profoundly alarming, even without the resources of to file a formal FOIA request or having established connections within the political arena. I still believe, even if a small portion of the current allegations hold true, we are facing a political scandal of unparalleled proportions in American history. The unsettling prospect of the United States functioning for nearly 4 years without a fully aware and actively guiding president is beyond the pale. Moreover, the idea that unelected bureaucrats may have been steering the ship raises questions about the very foundations of accountability, the democratic processes, and the representative government that's required. Should this situation be substantiated, it would lay bare the lengths to which the leftist political ideologues will go to secure and sustain power in their relentless pursuit to reshape America into a new world order, along with extreme measures to ensure the continuity of their socialist economic agenda, even at the expense of American leadership. If proven true, such actions would pose a severe threat to the integrity of American governance and make President Trump's second term, along with 8 years of Vance and Rubio, that much more critical to the future well being of the United States and the U.S. Constitution and democracy itself. Now, this scenario also sheds light on the intense animosity directed towards President Trump, because unlike career politicians who often depend on substantial campaign donations and the promises of lucrative opportunities following their service, Trump's significant personal wealth grants him a rare degree of autonomy, meaning he doesn't have to listen to him. He can do whatever he wants to stop it. The financial independence empowers him to champion his political agenda, keep his campaign promises without the chains or obligations that typically bind politicians to powerful financial brokers. The influence that lobbyists and major corporations wield over the American government is nothing short of staggering. And the leftists who say it doesn't do with them, they're lying. Now, in a podcast interview, Matt Gaetz discussed how when he was elected and sought to be appointed to a committee position, he was informed that the seat would require a $75,000 donation to the Republican Party. So he either had to pay for it out of his own pocket or raise it from the lobbyist representing the companies regulated by that committee. Now, this is a stark illustration how the actions of government represented can be influenced by lobbyists and major corporations, regardless of their genuine intentions or convictions, unless they want to be pushed out of office and have trouble ever finding work in any industry again, being blackballed from any industry, never be able to work again because they didn't follow the big guys. Now, I don't have any comments. I'm trying to keep the camera for going again, so I'm not going to pause. I'm going to start with segment 3 right away. In a breaking news alert, in a powerful address delivered last night at a U.S. steel plant, Pennsylvania, President Donald Trump unveiled a groundbreaking initiative aimed at revitalizing American manufacturing and securing the livelihoods of countless steel workers. The president announced a historic $14 billion business investment, making it the largest infusion of capital into both the state of Pennsylvania and the entire U.S. steel industry. This landmark investment comes with significant guarantees for the American workers, unlike what Clinton secured. President Trump empathetically stated that as a part of this agreement, there will be no outsourcing of jobs and no job cuts within the U.S. steel industry for a guaranteed period of 10 years. This commitment provides a crucial layer of security and stability for the dedicated men and women who form the backbone of this vital sector of our our country's infrastructure. Furthermore, in a directly aimed at rewarding the hard work and dedication of these employees, President Trump announced they will receive a $5,000 bonus after the merger is complete. This tangible benefit serves as an immediate recognition of their contributions and underscores the administration's commitment to supporting American labor. Building on his administration's America First trade policy, President Trump also declared an additional 50% tariff on all foreign steel imports. This decisive action is intended to create a level playing field for domestic producers, incentivizing American companies to prioritize the purchase of American made steel and further bolster the resurgence of the national steel industry. This multifaceted announcement represents a significant victory for American manufacturing and Pennsylvania's economy and the thousands of families across the U.S. who support the U.S. steel industry and the down industry. This is not just a simple business transaction, it is a strategic triumph for American industry. This merger is a monumental game changer, positioning U.S. Steel to become an even more formidable force in the global market. By joining forces with Nippon Steel, U.S. Steel is poised for unprecedented growth and will emerge bigger and stronger than ever before. Dang it. It looks like my camera's going to shut down. I might get through this show. I might be able to get through this show tonight. I don't know. Let's see if it'll if it'll come back on or if this time it's done. I'm at least trying to get through this episode. All right. Nippon Steel also promised to keep U.S. Steel's headquarters in Pennsylvania, along with the U.S. government retaining an ownership stake in U.S. Steel, or actually getting a U.S. stake in Steel. This is a clear demonstration of how strategic partnerships can simultaneously fuel American prosperity and secure our industrial future, making the Rust Belt no longer the Rust Belt. This development reaffirms President Trump's commitment to the United States core industries and the skilled workers who power them. It ensures that a critical component of our infrastructure and national security remains firmly rooted on American soil. The future of U.S. Steel, bolstered by this powerful alliance, is brighter than ever, promising sustained growth, innovation, and job creation for years to come. We will continue to follow this development and bring you the latest updates right here on Patriots Corner. In other major breaking news this weekend, President Trump put Russian President Vladimir Putin on notice and issued some harsh words for Putin, saying that what Putin doesn't realize that if it weren't not for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened. To Russia, I mean really bad. Along with calling out China for not honoring the trade agreement, the U.S. has been negotiating over the last few months since the U.S. imposed 140% tariff, which were subsequently lowered to 30%. China was supposed to reduce to its 125% to 10%. President Trump says China has not honored its commitments, which obviously some people aren't surprised, neither is he. As for some local Texas breaking news, a college basketball player at Henderson State, Jamarian Brown, was shot at a Texas pool party. 17-year-old Jamora Newton was arrested and facing murder charges in connection with the shooting at the pool party, according to the Camp County Sheriff's Office. On a more positive note, the Texas House signed off on a $338 billion two-year spending plan on Saturday that directs billions towards hiking teacher pay, cutting property taxes, and shoring up water infrastructure for the state. The 1,056-page bill has one more step before it lands on Governor Abbott's desk for signature. One of the primary reasons the Texas House and Senate were able to cut property taxes is that President Trump's administration secured the southern border, which Texas had previously allocated $6.5 billion towards, and this funding was reallocated to lower state property taxes now that the border is secure. Also, another $1 billion in the budget bill will go to the school voucher program that Governor Abbott has already signed into law, which will allow parents to use for private school tuition or pay for a range of school-related expenses, even with public schools. Segment 4, I want to talk about the left's downfall and attacks on President Trump. Like I said, I'm not going to take it, try to keep going. In response to questions about former President Biden's cognitive state during his presidency, the left is trying to deflect these concerns by initiating attacks on President Trump's suggestion that he too is exhibiting early signs of dementia. This line attack is particularly disingenuous considering the stark contrast in their public engagement. President Trump routinely conducts numerous interviews throughout the day, maintaining a level of accessibility and transparency with the press that is unprecedented in recent history. Really, no president has ever done what he's done or been as transparent as he is. The problem with it is this constant interaction, while intended to foster openness, ironically provides his detractors with a vast amount of material that can be selectively edited and manipulated to further their agenda of calling him a dictator and of cutting Medicaid, Medicare, and operating as an authoritarian regime. Looking back at President Trump's first term in office, a notable period of relative global stability prevailed. However, the landscape drastically shifted following President Biden's ascension to the presidency. All right, that's the funny thing. It was under Biden, the world has since witnessed a surge in instability across various fronts. Domestically, the United States has faced a significant crisis at its southern border or a near invasion, accompanied by alarmingly high inflation levels that have impacted the financial well being of all Americans. Furthermore, the nation has experienced an unprecedented surge in governmental spending, leading to a staggering increase of $8.4 trillion in the national debt, accompanied by a substantial $2 trillion deficit. Ironically, it is the left now that is trying to attack President Trump on his big beautiful bill and trying to act like they're the fiscally responsible party, while at the same time saying that too many funds are being cut from Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, food stamps, welfare, and executive agencies. You can't tax your way out $36 trillion in debt. Sorry. And when accounting for all liabilities, this figure swells to an even more concerning $156 trillion. It's simply unrealistic to believe that raising taxes alone can effectively address such a colossal financial burden. A more comprehensive and fiscally responsible approach is undoubtedly required to navigate these unprecedented economic realities. Additionally, the agency that produces the report on government budgets is a leftist run organization that doesn't account for GDP growth or any other relevant factors in the current budget, which is why it shows such a large increase in the budget deficit or the budget overall. Considering President Trump's big, beautiful bill passed the House, which extends the 2017 tax cuts, which substantially benefit lower income households than it did the rich, as the left portrayed. Also, it includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and increased standard deductions, including car loan interest, the child tax credit, and the estate tax exemption. Additionally, it remains unchanged. Middle income households will see their tax bracket drop from 15% to 12%, and upper middle income households will go from 25 to 22, cutting even further. And the other households in the middle upper range will go 28 to 24 and 33 to 32, 35 and 37 stay flat. All right. Along with standard deductions increasing for married filing jointly from 16,600 to 32,600, child tax credits from 2,000 to 2,500 per child. And then, like I said, the upper income levels, theirs stays flat. So it's not benefits not going to the rich, as the left loves to push. It comes as no surprise, though. It also is that Elon Musk is on his way out, who was a darling of the left, now has become a target of the mainstream media scrutiny for his departure of the White House. As he was stepping down, a false narrative is being oppressively pushed, alleging an addiction to ketamine. And it's funny that all of a sudden that he's that this abrupt shift is media portrayal raises questions about the motivations behind such a sudden and potentially unfounded attack on a prominent figure. The recent actions of the Democratic Party once again highlight their intolerance to dissenting viewpoints. Their stance appears to be one of complete opposition to any form of cooperation with Republicans. Individuals who choose to work with across the aisle are swiftly labeled as traitors and subjected to relentless attacks from all sides. This rigid and unforgiving approach starkly contrasts with the Democrats' accusations that Republicans are the ones exhibiting authoritarian tendencies. This reaction to those who engage with the opposition reveals a deep-seated unwillingness to accept differing political perspectives and undermines the principles of bipartisan collaboration. It's hypocrisy. It's the left that's doing it. Now, segment 5. The progressive left is functionally driven by the pursuit of power and control. They achieve this objective through cultivating an oppressive and victim mentality among their constituents by convincing individuals that they are inherently disadvantaged and incapable of success without governmental intervention. The left fosters dependence on government support. This dependence, however, paradoxically hinders the very success it purports to enable. Sorry, guys, that my camera keeps going out. It got. I guess I can't run it for more than 2 hours. And it keeps cutting out on me. I'm trying to get through my show, so I don't have to end it in the middle of it. I hate doing that, so let's keep on going. Now, a mindset that perceives systematic obstruction and personal victimization discourages the risk taking and perseverance necessary for upward mobility and personal achievement. Consequently, individuals who believe themselves to be victims trapped within a rigid system are less likely to pursue opportunities and overcome challenges, ultimately perpetuating a cycle of reliance rather than fostering independence and self sufficiency, which by definition is cut from the Marxist playbook and the makings of a socialist dictatorship. Whereas the MAGA movement and conservatives are about individuality and believe that while government is needed to help hold a nation together and protect it from its adversaries, that is where it stops. MAGA conservatives also believe in common sense and that one's skills and abilities are what separate them from others. Only they themselves can, through hard work and perseverance, rise out of poverty or the middle class and become wealthy and successful. Also, MAGA conservatives don't care what race or sex someone is, or even if they are gay. All we care about is that everyone is treated equally based on merit without special treatment due to perceived oppressions or victimizations caused by outside forces that hinder their success because others are privileged. Well, that is the last segment. Actually, this isn't the last segment. I've got one more. I'm going to try to get the sixth segment done. That would have been the last segment if I'd been on TikTok, but I'm going to try to get the sixth segment done without hopefully my camera cutting out. Now, segment 6, it's pretty much continuance of 5, but that I can't put on TikTok live. So, along with pushing an identity ideology and dividing all of the constituents by race, gender versus biological sex, since the left believes that gender and biological sex are separate from one another, even though this was not recognized in the science community until 2013, a couple years after gay marriage was legalized, which is why the left lost the last election. Certain people are tired of being defined and told what to do by their perceived identity. Also, less than 20% of the population identify as LGBT and less than 10% identify as LGBTQ+, which is why it is a losing position. Why we don't care what less than 10% of the population wants to do with their lives. We do care about what 10% wants 100% of society, and especially our children, to be taught their way of life and brainwashed at such a young age, young and impressionable age, and indoctrinated them to believe they have a choice that they can change who they are and be a freaking bunny or a cat, or that there's 37 genders somehow. I've always said that while I didn't care if a gay couple wanted to get married, legalizing gay marriage was going to open Pandora's box, which it has, because now we have people claiming they identify as the opposite sex and as animals. If we allow this to become recognized and protected by the Constitution, who is to say it won't be pedophiles next who are saying that it's not a choice, but it's who they are and they can't change who they are on the inside? Really? Is that what we're trying to get to? Because that's where it's going. The Maha movement is one of the most important movements of our time because, in addition to environmental reasons for increased number of children born with autism or other chronic diseases, I also believe it is the reason we have seen an uptick in mental disorders that make people believe they can defy the natural order of God, or for non-believers, scientific fact. I mean, it's just insane that all of a sudden they're not science deniers when they deny biological sex and that there's only two genders, but yet when we deny climate change or global warming to the humans, we're science deniers. That makes no sense at all. If you enjoyed the content, sorry about the couple of cutouts tonight. I will make sure next time I let my camera cool it down a little bit more so I don't have these issues. Please like, follow, You can subscribe through my locals channel. I have not gotten to enough watch hours or subscribers on YouTube to subscribe through that. I mean, obviously, you can follow me, which it's the subscription button, but it's not a paid subscription. Or you can follow me through my Rumble channel, my Facebook, or my LinkedIn, my Instagram, or please follow all of them. But please like, share, comment. Let if you got any constructive criticism of what you think I can make to do it better, or subjects you would like to see me cover, or stuff you would like to see me add, let me know. And have a very good night.